Greetings yet again, and I'm sorry for being a bit late with this podcast. My name is Peter. I'm the Bible study facilitator for Accessible Fellowship. On Sunday mornings, we study the Bible using MennoMedia's Salt and Light curriculum, followed by worship and a message from Riverside Anabaptist Collective. Last Sunday's Riverside Anabaptist Collective speaker, Pastor Ray Watson of Covenant Presbyterian Church in Staunton, Virginia, presented a truly riveting perspective about spectrums or continuums that can be seen clearly in God's work of creation. It presented some ideas that were new and illuminating for me. I do have a link to that in the comments below. I know that this podcast is a bit late. Life has gotten very interesting for Lori and me, not in a bad way by any means. For example, tomorrow my oldest daughter is exchanging vows with her longtime partner. That's a very exciting, very good thing. We have some other things going on. I expect that my podcasts for the next month or so will be short and hopefully not too late. I thank you very much ahead of time for bearing with me on this. Did you ever wonder how Abraham's families grew in size and wealth? It seems hard to imagine going from dirt poor to having many camp followers, large flocks of sheep and goats and camels. Earlier this week, I was reading an article by Melanie Lidman, cited in the comments below, discussing an archaeology find in the Levant region. Now, the Levant is Israel, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, in that area, and the article mentioned that Gaza had been a major crossroads for commerce 6,000 years ago. So I decided to do a quick experiment. If you put your pencil on a world map, put it on the Mediterranean coast right near the Gaza Strip, and move to the west, to your left, across North Africa. As you get to the other side of the north coast of Africa, you find the Strait of Gibraltar, which is 8 miles wide. Not very wide, but still a significant gap. You don't cross it without a boat. Interesting fact, the Strait of Gibraltar probably was a small mountain range that acted as a dike, keeping the Atlantic Ocean out of Pangaea. When that huge dike was breached, water poured in across the area to create the Mediterranean Sea. That probably happened in a relatively short period of time, maybe just a decade or two, according to geologists. Another interesting fact is that the Rock of Gibraltar has been ruled by Great Britain since the early 1700s. So anyway, let's continue our tour. We've gone west from Gaza, across the northern coast of Africa, across Egypt, and then if you start to trace down the western side of Africa, you go all the way down the full length of this rather large continent, and you go around the south tip of Africa, and then start heading back north again. There's a little jog, actually a large jog, where you go around Somalia into the Gulf of Aden, and then continue sort of north to the Red Sea. You go north and find yourself in the northern tip of the Gulf of Suez. You turn around and head back south and around the Sinai Desert, and then go north again in the Gulf of Aqaba. When you're at the northern tip of Aqaba, if you could see far enough, about 100 miles north across mountainous desert, you would see a narrow stretch of plain, about 20 or 25 miles wide, running east and west. Gaza would be at the north side of that passageway, and that is as close as you will get to Gaza on our trip. turn around and head south again on the east side of the Red Sea, and then east across the south side of Saudi Arabia, and then take the long trip around Asia, all of Asia. And then as you head up the eastern side of Asia in the Pacific, you will turn left and head west and cross over all of Russia. Russia is large. At the northeast tip of Russia, you're within about 50 miles of Alaska. That would be the Bering Strait Pass, and during one of the recent ice ages, it was probably iced over with a ice bridge. Anyway, we'll go back west across northern Russia. Do this looking at a map, it makes more sense. Go around Scandinavia and Western Europe, and as you come down around Western Europe and go around Spain, before you get all the way around Spain, you find yourself back at the Strait of Gibraltar, and before you know it, you were back in Gaza. So, in other words, unless you have a boat, if you want to go from Africa to Eurasia, or vice versa, you will go through the Gaza region. My point is this: Hagar, Sarah, and Rebekah are not the wives of peasant farmers living in some backwater sticks. They live at the crossroads of all overland trade routes between the continents of Africa and Eurasia. God placed them there, protected them, nurtured them, and encouraged them, and empowered them. This is the geography of the locus of our lessons in this time period. Thanks to Jehovah, and as a testimony to his power, these women were smart, powerful, brave, and successful in a world run by men without any laws. Confronted with outrageous circumstances, they made decisions that led to unfathomable display of God's glory and his love for us. I was thinking about interesting life stories. I have a close friend who grew up in Nebraska, and he went to Indianapolis for alternative service in the late 60s. He finished his responsibility in Indianapolis, got in his car, and drove down the road, sort of heading home. He got to a traffic light and stopped, and as he was sitting there, he realized that he could either turn right and go back home to Nebraska, or turn left and come to Pennsylvania and visit his brother. He turned left, came to Pennsylvania, and he's still here. Another friend who came to northwestern Pennsylvania with the Mennonite Disaster Service in the mid-1980s after a particularly horrible tornado strike. He came from Kansas on a mission trip, and he is still here, married with 2 adult children. Just the result of a decision that was made on the fly in a short period of time, undoubtedly with inspiration of the Holy Spirit, a life-changing decision. I have my own experiences with recreational hitchhiking over 3 to 4 years during the early 1970s. My favorite one about being directed by the Holy Spirit is the time that I decided to visit San Francisco in California. And I hitchhiked through Texas and through New Mexico and across Arizona and across the southern tip of Nevada. You know, that's a fairly long haul. And I got to the border of California. I saw the Welcome to California sign, and the closer I had come to California, the more powerful was the urge to not cross the state line. I got out of the car, walked up to the state line, stuck my toes over the edge, and then turned around and headed back to the Grand Canyon for a week. So I can say my right foot has been in California, but none of the rest of me. And I still to this day know that the Holy Spirit was guiding my decision. 4,000 years ago, God empowered unlikely persons to begin his work of salvation for all creation. As you prepare for this week's lesson, think of the times when God has directed you to make a quick decision that changed your life. Think about how you will respond the next time you feel the nudge of the Holy Spirit. Please join me this week in praying that we will be open to God's leading, ready to pivot on a dime to do something outrageous and brave, something loving and kind at his word. Go in peace.